Okay, so this is the follow-up video to the divergence video that I just made, right? Like I said, I want to keep everything separate so that if people want to just come and watch a specific thing, they can just watch that without having to watch an entire 20-30 minute video just to get to that point that they wanted to see, right? So let's go over how do I enter these divergence trades, right? Anytime I look at divergence, right, I'm only taking these trades when I see that price has made a big move in that direction, right? So if I see that, okay, and this is the video for gold too, right? But let's just talk about divergence, right? If we're trading divergence, which is the only strategy that I trade on gold, you're going to see that, okay, if price was pushing in one big direction, right, and then we go divergent, I'm expecting that price is going divergent because it wants to fill in this gap that it made when it did this one big push, right? If we look at it, it pushed down 160 pips, right, without any retracement, right? So now if I see a divergence, I'm expecting for price to go the other way, right? So the way that I look for entries is I'm always looking for an engulfing candle, right? As soon as I see that engulfing candle, I'm taking a trade, right? Especially if it's on like the 5-minute chart, right? Because my stop loss can be really tight, right? The most that I'm ever going to have a stop loss on gold is only 20 pips. I am not going above 20 pips for a gold stop loss, right? So 20 pip stop loss, right? I could have had my stop loss at the bottom of this wick, but me, I keep it at the body, right? So we got a 16 pip stop loss if you enter the trade here, right? Which is where most of the people that I sent the signal out to enter that, right? So the trade ended up going for a total of about 40-50 pips, right? But this is where you can go in and break it down a little better to where you can get even tighter entries, right? So what I do is I will go down to the minute chart, right? This is some secret stuff right here. I will go down to the minute chart, right? And on that same area that I drew up that divergence at, I want to see an engulfing candle on the minute chart first, right? If I know that we diverging right here, right, and price is rejecting this area, and I see an engulfing candle form on the minute chart, I'm going to pull this trade as soon as that candle closes, right? So this is my engulfing candle right here, right? You see how we completely engulfed two candles, right? So I'm taking a trade as soon as that candle closes, right? So now my stop loss go from being 20 pips to only 7 pips, right? At the body, we only at 7 pips, right? So I enter this trade, right? I send a signal out to you guys, give y'all the same stop loss, about 7 pips, right? 7-8 pips. It's a little delay between when I send a signal and when y'all get it though, right? So I enter the trade off the minute chart, right? Hoping that 5-minute engulfing candle happens because the 1 minute engulfed, right? So what happens? The 5-minute chart follows up, right? And we get that 5-minute engulfing candle, right? But instead of us getting in up here, we were already in the trade somewhere down here, right? So we in the trade before everybody else, and we got a tighter stop loss than everybody else. So now instead of us only catching 40, we caught about 55 pips off this trade and that's off that signal, right? And we had a way tighter stop loss if price was to come against us, right? So like I said, we look for that divergence on the 5-minute chart, right? Or the 15-minute chart. But then we go down into the minute chart. If we really confident in that trade, we go down to the minute chart and we want to see that the minute chart engulfs one of those minute candles. We take that trade with the tightest stop loss, right? And then hope that 5-minute chart, that those 1-minute candles equal in like forms a 5-minute engulfing candle, right? Which is going to give us that confirmation, okay, we going long now. Anytime I see an engulfing candle at a divergence, it usually plays out, right? We can even look at this trade, for example, which is one that I didn't mark up, but let's look at this, okay? Price was moving up, right? What happens? We go to the RSI, and we see that price was sort of moving down, but it's more flat to me. It's more like a double top on the RSI, right? Which is indicating that the sellers are losing momentum. The buyers are losing strength, right? So we get this 5-minute engulfing candle right here, right? Like I said, this is literally the only confirmation that you need, right? This trade ends up going for 132 pips. right? But do you see how one divergence usually leads into another? So in the same day, you can literally take 2 different trades and eat, right? But let's just see how big our range was for this trade. We had a 24 pip stop loss, which is still cool, right? But let's see if we would have went down to the minute chart and could have got a better entry. Now, it's not going to happen every single time, right? But we do want to check that minute chart before we enter that trade. If we're looking at a divergence at that zone, we want to look at the minute chart and see if we can get a tighter stop loss. So let's look. What do we get right here? We get an engulfing candle on the minute chart first, right? Look how many candles it covered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 candles. It engulfed all those candles, right? Now let's look at where our stop loss is at. Instead of us having a 25 pip stop loss, now we only got a 15 pip stop loss, right? And we in that trade way earlier than everybody else, right? So, like I said, the minute chart is going to be that indicator that lets you know, okay, price is about to reverse now, right? If you mark up that divergence on that 15 or that 5-minute chart, and then you go down to the minute chart looking for that entry, your stop loss is always going to be tighter, and you're always going to be in the trade quick earlier than everybody else, right? So let's look at this example again, right? Just off the simple divergence, right? Let's look over here. Hold on, I keep doing this. Okay, if we come here, you see we was diverging, right? This was our engulfing candle that we was looking for, right? Since this engulfing candle is so small, it's literally only a 9 pip range, right? We got a 9 pip stop loss on this red engulfing candle right here to cover this green one. But look how many pips we got. So we got a 9 pip stop loss for a 115 pip take profit, right? 115 pip gain. But the thing is, we didn't even go into drawdown, right? But you have to literally wait for this setup to form for you, right? Because you don't want to be getting into these trades too early. Let the market give you that trade, right? Let the market paint that picture for you, and then you never lose, right? So let's go over to this trade right here, right? Okay, you see we was divergent, right? What happens? 7 pip stop loss on this trade, right? Because we get the engulfing candle off the divergence, right? So what happens? We end up going for 80 pips off this trade with no drawdown, right? This is how I passed all of my FTMO challenges. You literally do not need to, if you can have a stop loss that's at least 10 pips, right? You can risk 10 lots on this trade. If say you're going for the 100K FTMO challenge, you can risk 10 lots, right? Look how many pips you caught. 80 pips, that's $8,000 in one trade, right? And then we traded the same trade the other way, right? Because we had another divergence right here, right? So you could have literally just finished that challenge in one day, right? So let's look at the last example before I end this video, because this video getting close to 8 minutes. I'm going to go over both of these trades right here because they both were perfect, right? Divergent, right? Price is flat. RSI moving down, right? We get this 5-minute engulfing candle, right? This 5-minute engulfing candle is pretty big, right? It's a 40 pip range, right? We don't want to get into a trade where we got to have a 40 pip stop loss, right? So I know that, okay, this 5-minute candle was, since this candle was this big, I know it would have gave me my 1-minute entry, right? But if we would have just pulled it off here with, you know, testing our luck, right? You would have had to use a smaller lot size, of course, because you got 40 pips, right? We ended up getting 100 pips off that trade with no drawdown, right? But let's look and see what we could have did if we would have entered off the minute chart, right? If we entered off the minute chart on this trade, where is it at? Sorry for the clicking. Okay, we entered off the minute chart for this trade, right? Look at where our entry was at. Instead of our entry being down here, we're now up here, right on the line, bro, right? So let's look. We get this engulfing candle right here on the minute chart, which only has a range of 15 pips, 13 pips, right? Our stop loss is 13 pips. Rather than us having a 40 pip stop loss, right? We end the trade before everybody else. Look how many pips we catch, 150, right? So we just saved ourselves a 30 pip stop loss. We just saved ourselves 30 pips on our stop loss, and look how much we gained, 150 pips. Now, the cool thing about this is, say you took this trade and you got in on the minute chart up there. Once this 5-minute candle closes, you're already in 40 pips profit, right? You already in profit about 30, 40 pips, right? So now you can literally enter another position here at the closing of this 5-minute candle, because no matter what, all you're going to be doing is just losing this profit that you just made, right? So you can really just lower your lot size and put a second entry in, right? And now you got 2 entries that end up running for over 100 pips both, right? Easy money. Then what happens right after we hit take profit for this trade, right? We get another divergence that forms. Why am I confident to take this trade? Because price just did a big, huge drop. It was over 100 pips, right? So if we see a divergence lining up, we confident in taking that, right? How do we enter this trade? Okay, price is moving lower, right? RSI is moving flat. Engulfing candle off the divergence, right? Just off this, let's just say we took it back to up here, right? Look, 150 pips. It went farther than this. This trade was probably like a 300 pip trade if you held it, right? But let's go down to the minute chart and see if we could have got that entry even earlier. Look at this, bro. I am not kidding y'all when I tell y'all this is the sauce. We look at this trade now, right? Remember, this is our divergence on the 5-minute chart, right? This whole little trend line, right? But our entry would have been somewhere up here, right? Maybe somewhere like right here. So we got a 20 pip stop loss, right? If we would have entered off the 5-minute engulfing, but now we on the 1 minute, we on the 1 minute chart, we're looking for our entry. So look, as soon as we see this engulfing candle right here, this candle engulfed 3 candles, 1, 2, 3, right? I don't care if it's the minute chart, I'm confident, right? Now we got a 10 pip stop loss on this trade, right? We saving ourselves 10 pips by not waiting for the 5-minute engulfing, right? So we get in here off the 1 minute chart as soon as this candle closed. Bro, it's just money, right? Only drawdown you took was 3 pips, right? But it didn't even come close to your stop loss, right? So now the people that's getting in on a 5-minute chart, they're behind, right? They're behind. And you can place another entry here. Like I said, place another entry at that 5-minute engulfing once you know that trade going your way, right? And then we just eating on 2 trades, over 200 to 300 pips off both of these trades combined, right? Easy work. I'm telling y'all, take notes on this stuff. Study it, okay? Study it. Back test it. Go and look at these same trades that I marked up, because all of this stuff is recent, right? Go and look at these trades. I'm telling y'all, y'all will pass the FTMO challenge with just this strategy right here, right? I tell people not to trade gold on the FTMO because a lot of people are trading gold using support and resistance, which is not what you want to do with something where you have a restriction for how much money you can lose in a day, right? But if you trade the way that I trade gold, you can have the tightest stop loss just like you trade in the Forex pair, and you can literally beat that challenge in a day, beat that challenge in a week, right? Remember, I'm telling y'all, you don't have to rush it, but this is the way that I trade gold, right? You can run it up on your live account, your FTMO account, whatever you want to do. Practice it in demo. But this strategy is literally like the best strategy that I ever used when trading, right? I just kind of started trading the Forex pairs, which is why I went more to the Fibonacci strategy, right? But this is like the holy grail of trading for me, right? Trading this divergent strategy. And yeah, let me know how this works out for y'all. Like I said, it's going to be another video covering this because it's a little more in detail with actual these levels that you see on my screen, which is this little template that I use, right? But I'm gonna go into that in another video because this video already getting long, so let's move on.